Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition may have an ability that I don't have, Mr. Speaker, and that is a crystal ball to see into the future and see that the coronavirus was going to impact on the Australian economy, Mr. Speaker. And every time we have spoken about the economy, we have done it on the basis of the knowledge that we have and the certainties that are present at that time, Mr. Speaker. And it is indeed the case, as the mid-year economic statement showed in December, that that's where the budget was. And at that time, Mr. Speaker, we were already in that position, and that's where we were going, Mr. Speaker. And I can tell you that the reason we are in a position to having already brought the budget back to balance, and we're on that way to that surplus, Mr. Speaker, was because of the painstaking work that our government did over 6 years. Now, Mr. Speaker, this is an important issue because our government has already demonstrated our ability after major crises to actually do the work and get budgets back into the positive position, Mr. Speaker, and to ensure that we can get debt down, Mr. Speaker. And when you're hit by a crisis, as we have, and I remember standing in this place last year, Mr. Speaker, when those opposite were encouraging us to spend and spend and spend. And I came to this dispatch box, Mr. Speaker, and I said, we must be careful because we don't know what can happen in the future and the shocks that the Australian economy may be hit by. Well, that's exactly what happened, Mr. Speaker. If we'd followed the prescription of those opposite, Mr. Speaker, we would have impaired the budget and we would not have been in the position that the Treasurer and I and the government have been into to extend the largest economic lifeline to this country we have ever seen. We were able to do that from a position of confidence because we had spent 6 years ensuring that we got the budget under control, that we moved from a time when we inherited from the Labor Party, debt growing.
The Prime Minister will resume his seat. The member for Lingiari. The Leader of the Opposition on a point of order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It was a very clear question.
Yeah, you just need to go to the point of order and please don't repeat it.
It goes to relevance. The Prime Minister hasn't answered the question of whether he regrets saying the budget was already back in black.
The Leader of the Opposition will resume his seat. That's just before I call the Prime Minister. It was a short question, and I know in the Leader of the Opposition's mind it was very specific, but when you ask about something, whether you regret something, it's pretty hard for me to curtail the answer. So, Prime Minister is in order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The point I was about to make is when we came to government, our debt was growing at 30% a year. And, Mr. Speaker, prior to this crisis, we had brought that back down to a growth rate around about zero, Mr. Speaker. And we did that over 6 years. But I'm asked about regrets, Mr. Speaker. I can tell you one thing. The Australian people don't have regrets about what they did on May 19 last year, Mr. Speaker, because of the decisions and actions that have been taken by this government, Mr. Speaker. It has ensured that we'll be able to move through what has been a 100-year event, and we remain focused on providing the leadership and the direction to ensure that we can continue to do that. And we've extended the economic lifeline and will be in a position through our careful economic management to ensure that we grow our economy and we ensure that we put as little burden on future generations as is absolutely necessary to ensure Australia gets through this crisis.